on our live chat today to tell you a little bit about our twin flame journey story. And it's 11:11. It's the portal of a very sacred activation, and our twin flame journey, our remembrance of that, started on 1/1 and the evening of 1/1, which was the 2nd of January of 2021. So it's really appropriate that we tell our story on 11:11. So the ones are all about activation and a sacred connection to divine and divine timing and perfection. And so we really feel like a lot of you have wondered what's going on, like what's the deal? Why is all this happening? What is the deal? So we have Autumn on audio joining us. She is in our Yoga for Love training program. She's one of our directors and our teacher training and our online courses, as well as a dear friend and soul sister and Reiki master. So Autumn, we're going to let you kind of lead a little bit of an interview style so we can get this conversation rolling. But first, I just want to introduce ourselves. I'm Aiylah. My given name is Lisa, and I am a Reiki master teacher. My divine work in this world is to bring the light of Christ into the Sophia form through the goddess and all of her forms, specifically being called and activated through the goddess Isis. And so that's a little bit about me.
And I'm Takata. Jamie is my birth name. And and let me throw in that Ray is my last name. And so I also have this deep connection with Ra. So Isis and Ra. That is a thing.
For the millennia.
Yeah, for the millennia, exactly. I have been a DJ Sunray, for a long time now, since 94, and then working in the healing arts for the last 20 years, and doing life coaching, holding ceremonies and retreats,
playing music.
She
plays all kinds of instruments, specifically percussion.
Yeah.
And I have called in my medicine drum as of 2020, and always wanted to drum, and realized that I've drummed for a lot of lifetimes, through sacred chant and through prayer and meditation, through sacrament and ceremony. As the drumming that I do is I bring it through as a channel. So the drum really plays me. And so you want to start back in January. Well, Autumn, what do you want to lead a question? You had started with the question that you want to lead with. So what is that?
When and where did you guys meet?
Okay, that's a really good question. When and where do we meet? We actually don't remember in this life.
We don't remember. We don't remember for certain.
We've always been like in each other's circles. Like I've known about her for since at least 2011.
Yes.
When I first opened my first yoga studio, Dynamic Yoga for Love, in Red Oak, Texas. And I knew that she was doing similar practices. There were several women within our tribes that would kind of cross over to some of the events I was doing and some of the things that she was doing. It was before she opened her studio space, but we had been sitting in ceremony with the same circle of women, but not together, and in a plant medicine ceremony.
So yeah, so our circles were overlapping. A lot of the same close friends, etc. But we actually didn't know each other.
We knew of
each other. And I don't even know exactly when you came into my awareness, other than you just.
I know that I went to your studio space when you opened that. That was in 2014.
Yeah.
I visited and did a class or workshop in her studio, that's the year you opened, right?
In 2014.
Yeah, and then that's also coincidentally the year that my studio was coming to a close after a major house fire, and I was told to shut down my brick and mortar studio and focus on my teacher training and really, really focus on my home and my foundation. I was working very, very closely with Kali Ma if any of you know who've been through massive chaos, destruction, especially in the form of fire, Kali is the governing energy of chaos, and also she's the destroyer and also the birth giver, and as is Pele, which is kind of circling back to both of our stories with Hawaii. But I was working very closely with Pele and in this chaos space, but I was holding space for my online training, which was birthed through that process because I was closing my studio and I wanted a place to continue to hold my trainings. And that was before like Zoom or anything that. We actually recorded all of my first beta set of yoga trainings from my manual with the Google Hangouts, if y'all remember that. So it sounds like so antiquated now. But so then that's when our tribes were kind of cross-pollinating. And I was holding plant medicine ceremony on my sacred land with this circle of women since 2011. So for 10 years, I'd been holding ceremony, but we had never sat together. So
yeah,
there was the holistic festival we were doing that started in 2016, where we started.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Right
there
around
was
then.
We would have booths that would be placed next to each other in the holistic festival.
Yeah, we kept.
So I know that we met there.
Neighbored at the holistic festivals, and my table would be next to hers, and then I would show up the next time, and it was like, oh hey.
Yeah, and so we'd like have a chance to visit, but it was always busy, and we had different members of our tribes that were kind of hanging out at my table, hanging out at her table, hanging out at our booths, but we were constantly talking to people being at a festival. And I was teaching. So, I was just super focused. And so finally, after a couple times of that happening, we wanted to talk more. And
was it 2019?
Yeah, it was 2019, the summer of 2019, summer solstice, as a matter of fact, which was literally a year after my book. I did my book launch. So my book, Yoga for Love, Tools for Mind, Body, Spirit for a Holistic Lifestyle, was launched through the birth of the fire and through the need to have a manual for my online training. And that was literally a year previous to the year that we met in person and actually like intentionally sat down together. And this was summer of 2018. My book was launched summer of 2019. We went to Jamba Juice after the Holistic Festival.
Yes.
To just have a quick smoothie.
Yes.
Which turned into closing down
like
the restaurant.
A 4-hour conversation.
Our smoothies
felt like 30 minutes.
Yeah. They were like, we were taking our family's smoothies home and they were all melted. Sorry about the melted smoothies, guys. We just got into conversation. But even then, it was completely platonic. Everything was completely platonic.
Absolutely.
To answer your question, it is not platonic. We are cosmic lovers. We are, life partners. Yeah, yes. Not at this point. Obviously, after this year, 2021, things shifted. We're going to get to how that shifted and what happened, because it really wasn't even an intentional thing.
Yeah.
We were both completely blind. And so we just hung out. And then like at the Holistic Festival.
Well, let me do a little bit of backstory as well. So in 2011, while she was also sitting with the same people in ceremony, I had attended a ceremony in an Aiylah ceremony, and it, through a series of magical events, had been, synchronized and led to this one moment. And I sat in a 3-day ceremony, and on the very first night of that ceremony, I was witnessing the maestro playing his instruments throughout the ceremony. And I realized later that, the medicine didn't hit me really hard the first night. And it was so that I could be witness to the ceremony and actually observe it from a place of kind of in between both worlds. And that's when I was, I witnessed him playing, and it was just something in me that was just like, this is like DJing a ceremony with sacred instruments.
A whole other level.
I feel this in my being, in my soul, like this is what I'm being called to do. And I was told by the medicine to go and collect the instruments, that this was part of my path. And then I continued on. It was a beautiful 3 days, lots of lots to that story. We won't dive into that, but I went on with that mission knowing that I was to collect the instruments. And then through a series of other ceremonies that I sat in, I reached this point where 3 different ceremonies, 3 different plants, I kept getting the same message that I needed to stop journeying with the plants actually and do the work here. And that actually was part of the process that led me to opening my studio and opening Divine Sight Healing Art Center. And so I spent the next 6 years running that. I was told in that process that I would know when it was time to return to the medicine, that I would have a clear call to come back. So
yeah, she was being invited to all the ceremonies that were being hosted on
that she
my
was
land,
doing, and
but
I
she
was
was
like,
told no.
I was told not to do this right now. So I never attended any of these ceremonies, ironically. But
Which was perfect because the medicine is what opened that door for us.
right.
So that was not meant to happen. It was like all divinely ordained, not meant to sit.
Right, but right around the time in which we had our holistic festival / Jamba Juice conversation, right in that time frame is when I started to hear the call to come back to the medicine and start working. And I was just getting, just start preparing yourself. It's coming. When it's right timing, you'll know, but it's coming. Just know that you're being called back. And so when we sat, I was also being called to start DJing again. I hadn't been really playing and DJing anywhere. So, it was a single mom working, running a business. It was kind of hard to also be the DJ in that whole thing. But I was really getting the message that it was time for me to move back that direction. And so we were having our Jamba Juice, and I shared, I'm really feeling called to come back and start DJing. When I was
like,
some gigs, she was like,
DJ,
what?
Like, no way. So first of all, that's cool because everybody loves the DJ, right? But second of all, I was like, okay, we totally need a DJ for the festival that I'm planning. And I had been doing, this was the 14th annual DFW Free Day of Yoga. And I was the president of the organization. I've been with the board since the inception year. And I volunteered for that organization as a nonprofit for years and years. And it was the largest round robin yoga class in Texas. And we always did like a really amazing group of the top yoga teachers from all over Texas and Dallas, Fort Worth. And we'd hold it in downtown Dallas, and we'd have a DJ play the set while we did our flows. And each person would have like 10 minutes, and we'd have like 10 teachers or 7 to 10 teachers. And then we'd have yoga classes and vendors and stuff all day long. And that year I was like, okay, we need a new vibe for this. I'm really bringing this more shamanic vibe. I felt really more called to sit in the medicine. I was told not to sit in the medicine at all in 2019. So I actually closed down the sisterhood circle that I was hosting. And I said, I'm not going to host this anymore. I need to just sit in my own space. And so this was the year after my book released. I had spent that whole year like writing, and I was just really feeling into my teacher training, hosting, these festivals, connecting with my tribe. And I wasn't sitting in the medicine until I was called to sit with Combo on Winter Solstice of 2019. That's not even psychedelic. So I was like, okay, this is time to really bring this festival to another level, bring it to more of a shamanic vibe, because I was really feeling like it was getting to be too much of like a marketing event and not enough meat and substance, if you will. And so she's like, yeah, like how do you describe your DJ set?
It's like shamanic medicine music, world electro,
tribal beat.
Yeah, I've always had a world electro vibe. I love mixing the analog and digital as in union.
Which is perfect, divine union as well. Like everything is already ordained to be. And so I was like, okay, yes. Like she sent me one of her tracks, and I'd invited her to do the event, and she's like, yeah. And so that was about to happen in September of 2019. It was always on Labor Day. So like every Labor Day, I was committed for 14 years to do this festival, other than the year that I had the fire. And then, so that happened, and it was like the biggest festival we had yet. I partnered with downtown Dallas, like their marketing group, and we had some huge corporate sponsors, and we took up the whole entire Main Street garden. And so the whole garden was like a whole nother vision that she had received.
Yeah, like right before the event, I had a dream of being in a 3-tiered garden, and I was sitting with a woman on a porch swing in the yard, and I just had this familiarity with this woman, but I couldn't see her face. And this jaguar came in, and he was behind him. He had all these other animals. He was leading all these other animals to safety away from the fires. And at that time, that's when the Amazon was like hardcore on fire. But the jaguar came in, and they started to surround me. And I look over, and the person I was talking to was gone. And I knew that she had gone inside. And
this is in your dream.
This was in the dream. And I walk, I kind of get up. I get a little uncomfortable because there's so many animals around me, but they're kind of like also in spirit form. And it's kind of like, this is getting a little intense. So I start making my way up the tiers of the garden, and the jaguar is following me. And I start to speed up a little bit, and he speeds up, and I make it up to the porch, and I can see inside that the woman I was sitting with was inside. And I realized that she's actually Pachamama that I was sitting with. And I turn and I face the jaguar, release the fear, and I'm like, okay, what is it that you want from me? And I reach my hand out, and the jaguar takes my hand into his mouth and holds it, and I just surrender to it. And then he like spits my hand out, and telepathically he says, why would I want your hand in my mouth? Silly human. But I also received the message that I was being initiated into working with the plants on like that I'd reached this level, and it was actually a great honor to receive it. I woke up and was just really emotional about it. But then I show up to the event ready to play, and I'm getting all of my things out.
Like literally the center of downtown Dallas.
Yeah, I'm getting all my things out, taking them up to the stage, dropping them off to go get some more things. And I turn around and I realize that I'm in a garden, and there's 3 tiers to the garden. And
then she's like sitting up on the tier.
I see you working this thing. I gotcha. And so I knew that I was exactly where I was supposed to be in this moment. And
so that was the final event too. It was so beautiful. The Bhakti House band played, and they had a new song about water. And then in the middle of hot ass Texas summer, it started to rain. It was amazing. So it was really, everything was perfect. We ended that circle for the first time ever in a shamanic drum circle. And this was literally like empowering the very center of downtown Dallas with the medicine drum. And it's before my actual medicine drum came in. It was my first drum that I've sat with in ceremony since 2011. And I brought it, and we had several drummers that were leading drum circles that day. And we had a wonderful sister leading a crystal bowl meditation, and we all got together in the center of the circle. A lot of the women from my goddess tribe were there representing at my booth, and they smudged the whole circle. This is happening like literally in downtown Dallas. So you could see this portal of light charging up the whole entire city. It was powerful and amazing. And it was like a beautiful green space in the middle of downtown. So that happened. And that's really how our working relationship started.
Yeah, and it was after that event that we all went and had some food afterwards, and we were talking after we ate, and we were like, we should sit together. We should
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know,
I
like,
recognize the medicine
have a
woman in her.
ceremony
She
and,
recognized
like,
the medicine woman in me. We're like, we
let's
need to
sit.
we need to sit. And I felt called to sit again after not sitting for a year. And I was like, but the work that I wanted to do, I needed to do my own work. I didn't want to hold space for anybody else. And I knew she could hold her own. And I was like, we need to sit together because, this, I see you
Mhm.
and on this level. And so we decided we were going to sit together in January of 2020.
Yeah, things kept happening, so we weren't able to sit until January. And
Mhm.
at that point, there was a lot going on. I could feel energetically something was coming, something big was coming.
Yes, we could all feel it, like a freight train.
It's like,
Yeah, we knew
I don't know
something
what's
was going
happening.
down.
I knew that the studio was probably not going to be there for much longer, so we
had lots of conversations about that too, because being business owners also in both sister studios, she's like, I want to hold space for my people, I want to hold space for my teachers, how do I go about transitioning the studio, because it's just losing ground, and and we had lots of
have it anymore.
Yeah, so we're having a lot of conversations like together as like peers and coaches, like that kind of conversation. And then we decided we're going to sit together. So Autumn, do you have any other questions on that?
I do.
Okay.
First question, do you guys feel free finally? Like free in a relationship, free in like, I don't know, like about relief, like something's off your shoulders, you're safe, you're comfortable.
That's a really good question. Do you want to lead off with that? So the question is, do you feel free finally? Do you feel like some relief, or there's a weight off of your shoulders?
I feel at this point in the journey, I feel at the most peace I've ever felt in this life. I absolutely feel freedom. It's like
it's such a cohesive support in this relationship that
so good.
Yeah,
it's so good. I've never been met so clearly. I felt so free.
Yeah. So I definitely. Oh, Autumn, if it logs out, just log back in. So she's joining us on Zoom for the interview. So I have a different experience about freedom because I came from a relationship and being in a 29-year marriage. This year was 29 years and never intending to leave that marriage. I never had any thoughts about leaving. I never conspired to leave. I never thought I would leave. I just thought that I was doing my work in the world independent of him. And he was doing his thing and totally supportive of my work. And never, said that he was not going to do this work with me. It's just that he is on a different path and trajectory spiritually, as far as, not really tapping into the shamanic work. He sat with medicine and really processed it in the unconscious level, but never really sat with medicine again. But I know I'm a medicine woman and that's my calling. And so I continued to deepen that journey and take my shamanic training in 2016, and then travel to Hawaii with a dear friend and hold a wellness wave retreat in 2017 at Kalani over by Pele's, birthing point of the Mount Kilauea, the volcano, the active volcano. And then as soon as I left the island, she literally erupted for 8 months straight, creating like a mile or two of new island. And then, so it was just an incredible,
taking out some of my most favorite places.
Yeah, it was just,
I also have a deep connection with the Big Island.
Yeah, and she was literally in that same location years before. And so then, to circle back to the whole question about freedom, I never knew I wasn't free until I decided to follow my heart. And so in 2017, I took my daughter and my husband at the time to Kalani, and we also stayed part of the time in Kona, which is the sunny side, and we bought a condo over there. And I knew I was called to sit there, but he didn't really want the condo. He just supported me in that purchase. He didn't really care to go back to the island. And that was to me like, what? How can you not want to go back to the island? You know, because it's so embedded in my soul that, you know, I'm obviously, you know, there's galactic DNA in all of us, but I really resonate with the Lemurian and the Pleiadian, and they have such a huge um, a huge load of information for us when we do step into the islands of Hawaii. And so, and then of course I share that with my soul sister, Tanya, who invited me to do the retreat with her. And then I was called to hold another retreat, and, you know, he was not interested in being involved. So I continued to just kind of, like, my trajectory was going from like this, and his was staying steady and holding place in the land, and, you know, holding place in Texas, where our yoga studio is, and our, you know, taking care of the pets. And we were focused on my son, who had just left for the Navy in 2017, my daughter, who was about to graduate in 2021. And, you know, so I was home a lot, but also my heart was wanting to travel. So I was setting all these things up for us to travel. But he also told me he didn't want to go with me. He wasn't really interested in seeing some of those places. For instance, Egypt. He's already been there. He was there in the military. Didn't need to go again. You know, Hawaii, he already been once. He doesn't want to go again. So I asked her, I was like, do you want to be my travel partner? You know, and she's like, yeah, you know, absolutely.
I love to travel.
So, you know, I'm like, you know, as we knew we could work so cohesively together, with her bringing the music and me bringing the yoga, and then both of us being medicine women and working with the energy of the medicine, we knew that we have alchemy there.
Because of the ceremony that we sat in.
Well, and that happened. Yeah. So that's we're going to talk about in a moment. But even just through the event that, you know, you DJ'd, I knew that we would make a good match to work together in that capacity.
Absolutely.
And so it wasn't until we sat in ceremony that I was confirmed on like a soul level. And we'll talk about that in just a second. But the freedom thing is that, you know, I never knew that I wasn't really free to fully, completely embody and walk my truth until everything came to a head in January of 2021. But that's jumping ahead. So I'll get to that when we get to that. But we want to circle back to January of 2020, which is when we first sat together with the medicine, mushroom medicine specifically. Autumn, do you have any other questions? That
was actually my next question. When did you know that it was going to become something more than just
we sat in the ceremony in January of 2020.
Well, real quick, let me speak to that. Okay. She was never my best friend. I always had an affinity for her on another level than a friend. It wasn't that I was allowed to be attracted to her because I was in a marriage, but I was so attracted to her always, like in a way that I could not explain, that I'd never felt with anybody else. So I didn't know what category to put it in. There's no box to put that in. I just knew that there was an attraction, that she's not my sister, she's not my friend. I don't know, she's my ceremony partner. So I always just referred to you as my ceremony partner, because that's really the only role that fit.
Like the thing that.
Yeah, that was the only role that fit. So, you know, because I have a best friend, and my best friend is never going to be replaced with this relationship. You know, I have a sister, an actual physical sister, and she's never going to be replaced. You know, there's not a substitution in those roles, and those roles don't fit. You know, and even sister, like a soul sister, that's not a fit either. And I'll, you know, of course, we'll circle back to why, but you know, we didn't see it the whole time. And so we were.
But that was perfect. It was withheld from us so that we could.
Yeah, it wasn't until January of 2021. January 2nd.
1 year later.
1 year later, after we sat together. So to circle back to January of 2020, when we decided to sit in medicine, it was the new moon.
Yeah. What was it? The 27th.
I think it was the 27th of January. At your space.
Yeah, and it ended up being it was called
Divine Sight Healing Arts Center, which Divine Sight is her brand, Yoga for Love is my brand. And so Divine Sight hosted this ceremony, which we invited a couple other people, but nobody
Nobody else could
come,
attend.
and I was really okay with that because I didn't want to babysit anybody, to be flat honest with you. I'm like, if I haven't sat with you before, I probably don't want to sit with you right now because I'm here to do my work, you know, and I know that she's here to do her work. We both not sat with the medicine for a while, and it was time to really sit and just go deep. And I had a lot of processing to do because my baby boy was under the water in a submarine, traveling all over the world. And, you know, I had suffered a 9-week depression while he was in boot camp that I didn't know what to do with. I'd never been depressed in my life. And that whole experience of, in some ways, my son is also my twin flame, and a soul connection that's very inexplicable from mother to son. And some mothers and sons don't have that, but some do. And if you do, you understand what I'm saying. But I was very empathic to his journey until I realized I was a helicopter mom on a spiritual level, and I had to cut the cord, you know, and that was really at that ceremony that a lot of that happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we both were able to, well, first we made this tea that was epic.
It was epic. Our medicine man gave us the recipe, which we did a third of what he told us to, and thank God, because otherwise we would have been like journeying until Tuesday, and it was a Saturday. So there's that. But the tea was amazing, and
it was amazing.
The space was set up so beautifully. We set up actually with this goddess behind us. This was sitting at her studio. This was the altar that was at the studio?
That was the altar.
So weird. So here it is in our home studio. But yeah, so this goddess was sitting there, and she had set up a space for each of us to sit independent of each other, but connected through tapestries and rugs and our own instruments. We brought our own instruments, and as soon as the medicine hit, we just had to sit really early too, like really early in the day, so we could journey and then come back and eat, and I could actually drive back to my home in a villa from downtown Dallas. And so it felt like we were gone forever, but we went really deep and hard. And the thing is, the medicine was really on point because I started speaking light language and channeling as she was speaking it. And I didn't even know that I remembered the language. And we started conversing and chanting together and drumming together and playing together. And her instruments were completely complementary to my instruments. And it was this
perfect balance.
Perfect balance.
And there was this like knowing, like, we've done this like so many times. This doesn't just happen. This isn't just like we click in this just really balanced way. We're working so well together here, and then I was seeing her in different forms, and I remember
shape-shifting.
She was seeing me, and she was like, "You used to have a staff. Where's your staff?"
Yeah, I saw her.
That was home.
Yeah, I was, and then she started like spinning her staff after that, and really, I mean, like no one just picks up a staff and spins it like that. Like it's just, yeah, she was like on point with it. And
but while we were seeing these aspects of each other and recognizing, like, oh, we've done this over and over and over for thousands of years, like, but there was no instant, like, there were no memories that we could pinpoint. It was like
the memories together hadn't yet come in.
Like the book was closed essentially, because I asked many times, like, what is this connection? You know, what are the journeys that we've had in past lives or something? You know, can I get some feedback? And it was like access denied.
I didn't even ask. I was just happy to have a ceremony partner. I was happy to have a travel buddy. I was happy to do the work with her. And so from that point forward, we were told to start hosting ceremony and holding space together. Little did we know that was 2020, you know. It was the very beginning, and kind of rustlings were coming through from, you know, the other side of the world, and, you know, all the things were happening. And by the time March rolled around, we were going to sit around the equinox, and I actually had an inner goddess retreat. Oh, and to back up, was that 2019? No, that was that next year that we founded the nonprofit, which was 2020.
Yeah.
So inner goddess retreat, I was hosting it, and we realized that, you know, women are freaking out, like this pandemic is coming down. I need to go virtual because these women still need to meet together. People were, you know, just throwing up all their shit on me because they didn't know what to do with their vacation time, and et cetera, et cetera. And all that happened, and my back went out.
Oh, yes.
My dog jumps off the patio, and this is Athena, my dog. She's a Pyrenees Husky, and she was a large puppy at the time, and twisted my sacrum. And I had a coaching call and a reading, and I went in to do the reading. And as I was sitting there doing the reading, my back started to become on fire. And I drew the dog and the turtle in that reading, which obviously wasn't just for my client, it was for me too. And by the end of that reading, I was on my rolling office chair. I literally had to roll to my master bedroom and crawl to my bed, and I did not get off of my back for almost 24 hours. And even in the middle of the night, I wanted to get up to go to the bathroom, and I could not even twist my hips to get to the edge of the bed. I couldn't even scoot. I was completely on my back like a turtle. And so I just had to sit there in it. Even though my ex-husband was sleeping next to me, he also could become very much of a bear when I would bother him at night. And so I did not want to disturb him. I was like, okay, I'm just going to wait until dawn. Then I'll wake him up and he can pull me out of bed and I can get to the bathroom. And I sat with it. And I'm like, okay, is this about me? What is this about? Why, you know, everything we manifest is a message from source. And if it's something that severe, I need to pay attention. And so Dawn came and he pulls me out of bed, and then I was able to crawl. I could crawl just fine. Crawl to the bathroom. He carried me to the car. We went to the chiropractor, got adjusted, sat back, came back to the house, and still was on my back. And then the next day got adjusted again, and I got the message. And I was like, oh, this is everybody else throwing up their shit on me. This is not even mine. Like, I understand that I'm holding space for all these women, but I have decided that I'm going to hold space for these women virtually to keep everybody safe and to also placate everyone's fears. And the ones that are going to show up, we're going to have an amazing 2 days of an inner goddess retreat virtually. And I'm going to just give them a ticket to the fall retreat in replacement. And so Spirit gave me all this information, realized it wasn't mine. Instantly, my back was better. And then the next day she calls me. It was the day that everything was shut down.
Well, that was a Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody was saying everything is going to shut down on Monday. And I woke
So people
up.
are panicking. That's, you know, of course, no toilet paper was anywhere. You know, all the freaking canned food shelves were wiped out. We're
Yeah.
like, what the actual fuck is happening here?
And I woke up that morning, and before I even opened my eyes, I just heard really loudly, go empty the studio, get everything out. You don't know if or when you're actually going to get to go back. It's done. Go remove all your things. So
I was supposed to hold the retreat that Friday.
And I was actually going to be teaching
Yeah.
and helping and assisting in the retreat. And I was like, I've got to do this. And I called her, was like, this is the message I'm getting. And she was like, I think that's exactly what's supposed to happen. I will meet you there. I'm like, well, you're back. She's
Yeah.
like, I'm okay. Really?
Like,
I'm okay.
I was able to help her pack the whole entire studio. It's 3,000 square feet of stuff. We jammed that into both of our cars. And, you know, through that process.
I made a load on Friday and another load on Saturday, and anything else that didn't make it was just
donated to the universe.
Yeah.
But she, with that, she had a massive grief process and a death process because that was her baby. You know, she had it for 6 years. And so to hold space for that portal, it was a beautiful portal. There was lots of amazing things that happened in that space. And so to show up for you and to hold space for that ceremoniously and close that portal was such an honor. And I remember we closed everything up and placed that energy into a crystal.
Mm-hmm. And this tapestry was the last thing that was removed.
Mm-hmm. And the next place it was put up was in your master bedroom, which was in February of 2020. So that's when I moved in with her. But that was 2021. That was a whole year and a month later. But so throughout all that, we still weren't aware of what was happening, but our studios merged together.
Yeah,
like all of her yoga
my
stuff.
Equipment, it was
she's like, what do I do with it? You know, like I'm like, I'll take it to my studio. I mean, she had blocks and bolsters and shelving and mats and, you know, all the stuff that a normal studio owner has. And I was like, well, I'll just put the shelves up in my studio and we'll, you know,
figure it out,
whatever. And I
when
moved
we
all
know
that,
more.
the tables and chairs and all that. Everything was used for studio went to my space. Everything that could be used in personal went to her home. And then the rest went in her garage.
Mm-hmm.
Giant pile that was in her garage for quite some time. And that's really what happened. It shut down.
And then we were like, our studios just merged. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. You know, we know we're being called to work together. Now the universe is like merged our studios. This is interesting. Like you can't.
Yeah, like even I had the purge buckets from
like,
ceremony. Like
not
you know,
even not from our intentions, but it was like set up. You know.
Yeah. Like okay, I'll put all the studio stuff in my car. You put all the personal stuff in your car. So
it's like okay,
yeah.
Well, I guess that's happening.
So yeah, we had an amazing virtual retreat. Everything was perfect, and we were told to continue to hold ceremony together. So Autumn, do you have any other questions on that, or about something else?
What does your future look like?
Well, we didn't.
What was the question?
She said, "What did our future look like?" And for us, I mean, we were going to be doing ceremony together.
Yeah,
that was
sitting as ceremony partners. And so we knew the next time we could sit together would be on the next equinox or solstice. So the next one was summer solstice.
Summer solstice.
We did that
ceremony, and it was magic. Absolute
pure magic. I mean, the way that we flow together in the
medicine, got to really see it live and in person. Like, okay, this is what we're being called to do, and now we're actually doing it. And it was just absolutely seamless.
And it was on my sacred land, where I'd held ceremony all those years. And
that's where I got my headdress.
Yeah, the headdress is over here. I don't know if you can see it.
These can't. But yeah,
there it is, right there. And then my headdress is over here. But yeah, so you can't see it on the other video. But excuse me. So we were just told to continue to hold ceremony, and so we even through the pandemic, I said we're holding space for women to come and do the work.
So we did summer solstice, and then fall, and then
fall retreat.
And I wasn't at the fall retreat.
You weren't there, but we still held it.
But I was
in
going,
person.
why am I not there? I think I'm supposed to. I don't even know.
But I did there. It's because I had already planned it, and I already had guest teachers lined up, and
I remember going, I feel like I'm supposed to be involved in these, and I'm not at this one, but it was okay. And then we did our winter solstice. And it was the winter solstice that.
Well, let's back up to the fall where our girls came.
All right.
So we held
our daughters.
It was gorgeous, and then our sacred sister that it was on Labor Day of 2020, which was a year to the date that we had been sitting in that garden in downtown Dallas holding that event.
Right.
So a whole year later, and also the woman that played the crystal bowls, dear Tressa, dear sister, came as well. And she was also holding space for that event. And she was on our board for the DFW Free Day of Yoga. So the three of us medicine women actually a year later were holding space on a whole nother level.
With all of our daughters.
With all of our daughters present, which was so beautiful to work within the medicine and to work within the space together. And it was our second ceremony, but it was like second of thousands of ceremonies because everything was so beautifully orchestrated.
And our daughters are only 5 weeks apart in age.
And they both never had sat with the medicine, and it was really beautiful. But I want to back up also to May. So May of 2020, I had a 3-day ayahuasca ceremony. And April, I was told to get my medicine drum. Thank you.
I hear your voice.
Coffee is my spirit animal. That's another thing. We feel the same about coffee.
It's a ritual every day.
It is a ritual, with a mushroom powder and agave and all that stuff. So anywho, I'm digressing. May, I was asked to sit in ayahuasca ceremony, and I knew that 2020 was my year to say yes to everything that the universe offered me. So I said yes, but that only came in because look at my drum. It's right there. My medicine drum I was told to find my medicine drum because I knew sitting in ceremony that my little tiny drum that I had was not going to cut it. I needed something.
It's not sufficient.
It was not, and it's a beautiful drum. I don't disrespect that drum at all because it was my first drum. I got it in San Antonio.
Mad love for the drum.
Yes, but so my medicine drum told me that she's coming, and I needed to find the medicine woman who's going to do the drum for me. And this is a vegan buffalo drum. And my mentor from 2011 came to my heart, Patricia Dancing Elk. So I reached out to Patricia. I'd also seen her at several of the festivals. She had a booth next to me even. And we didn't really chat. She came and did some workshops for me at my studio in 2011. And then for several years, we did not see each other. And this was really 2020. And of course, I kind of followed her on Facebook every now and then, but not really connecting on a personal level. And so, 2020 brought everyone together on a personal level, like your full-on soul family. And so I was called to connect with her. And when things started opening up, she had finished painting my drum, and we met at a coffee shop when the restaurants were like 25% open. And the first thing she says to me is, "Here's your drum. Oh, in 2 weeks, we're sitting with ayahuasca." And I said, before I even took a breath, I said, "Okay, I'm there." And I was like, "Oh, wow." And I hadn't sat with ayahuasca before. I'd only sat with psilocybin and combo with my dear friend who served me, Tressa, 6 months before in December, winter solstice 2019. And that's when I started sitting with Hape for the first time. And then, so as I went to go sit with ayahuasca, Patricia and I were like on a Thelma and Louise road trip. And as we're heading out almost to Oklahoma, she's like, "Do you need vulture medicine in your medicine bag?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And vulture medicine has always spoken to me since my father crossed over right after the house fire. And I saw 9 vultures on the way from Bedford to Ovilla, which is just a 45-minute drive. And the vulture medicine is all about opening up the crown chakra and complete spiritual enlightenment. And they're the only raptor that doesn't kill. And they are an essential part of our ecosystem. And they're also freaking magic. And so she's like, "Well, look to the side of the road, and there's a vulture that just got hit." And so she makes this big mile around U-turn because we're on a 1-lane highway, and we go and pick up this bird. And I was
as you do,
being a medicine woman, that all the dead animals, have to have their proper place. But the raptors especially have a specific purpose with the medicine, and their feathers have been used in ancient ceremony forever and ever and ever. You can see any Native American headdress is full of eagle feathers or owl feathers or hawk feathers, and so the vulture was like, okay. So we grabbed, I called him Robert, picked up Robert, and Robert was not as fresh as we thought. And we get to the Aiylah ceremony, and I was like, "Woo, okay, this has to be taken care of right now." And so we were at this massive, automotive barn shop that was next to the house that we were holding our ceremony in. And I went in there and just got an axe, and I just took the wings off, and she donated the rest of the animal to the earth. And I sat and laid the wings out in the sun and let them dry and made these beautiful, beautiful ceremonial wings, which I'll share with you here. And this is one of them as it's dried. And so these fans are I danced with them. I used them to fan the fire. I used them for smudging and for clearing. So these beautiful.
My eye
came in. And so that happened in May. And then through the medicine, I was told to get trained to sit with combo and to learn how to serve sapo in combo. And so I got my training in July, and then started sitting on a daily practice with hape, which is sacred tobacco snuff. And she also did a combo inoculation in July.
Mm-hmm.
So then I met her daughter.
Sang into
Yes, The Purge was a song. So that all the medicines started coming in, and I was able to also meet her daughter, which is my bonus daughter, my soul daughter, Sage. And then Sage and I did some massive spiritual work and some clearing on the first day we met, which is a whole other story, side story. And then we did a soul retrieval, and then came back and picked her up from her combo ceremony. And then a month and a half later, the girls decided to sit with us in ceremony. And so that ended up, being a full circle with our girls, ourselves. It was a beautiful Labor Day ceremony, whole year later to the time that we started working together. And so we were just so confirmed that, this is the work we're supposed to be doing. We started getting invited to come to host other retreats or to come to other locations. And we just started saying, yes, okay, this is the path we're doing. We're doing this full on. And literally a month after that, I was told, I finally got the paperwork that closed down the DFW Free Day of Yoga. And I was told to completely shut it down because no one on my board of directors was holding space for it in the way that I was. And I knew that my work was taking me on a much deeper level than to hold a superficial entertainment style ceremony, festival. And so I was like, okay, I closed down the DFW Free Day of Yoga. And literally the next day, Spirit's like, well, you need to do something with the Inner Goddess Retreats. It needs to be separated from your Yoga for Love online training programs. And I was like, okay, I don't know why, but I mean, apparently my company's supposed to be separating and they're supposed to have their own thing. And then Spirit's like, well, why don't you just start researching nonprofits? And I was like, really? I just shut down a nonprofit. Like, I don't need to do another nonprofit. And Spirit's like, oh, just look into it. And within an hour, I had already filed for a nonprofit. And I messaged her and I was like, do you want to be my vice president? Because we're a nonprofit now.
Sure.
We need a board of directors. Oh,
why not?
I think we did this backwards, but so we got our board of directors together, which Autumn sits on our board as well. Holla. Yes. So that's really how that looped around a whole nother year later. Autumn, do you have any other questions on that, or any other things to lead off?
No, that was a really beautiful story, though. It's funny that you were intertwined all the way through, whether you knew it or not.
We've been now that we've talked, we've been looping around each other for decades. We've lived in the same neighborhoods at different times.
Went to the same clubs.
We've gone to same clubs with the same hangout spots.
Same the clothing store that I went specifically to Deep Ellum to shop in, she worked at. Yeah.
We've been literally looping each other
since we live together now too. Pieces that I have, dish sets, I have one piece of, she has the other three.
Vice versa.
Things that I own, such as we're both carry owl medicine in a very deep way, and she has matching sets to all my owls. Our son is here. Sorry about the dogs. So and so as that loops around, I hope you can stay on, Autumn. I don't know how much longer you have, but we want to loop around to the whole twin flame story. But the December ceremony happened next, and it was
the October Aiylah ceremony.
Oh, that's right. We went and
happened.
That's right. I had the October retreat, and then we were invited to sit again
And
with
we were going
ayahuasca.
to go sit for ourselves at an Aya ceremony. And that was actually the first time I got to play the instruments in an Aya ceremony. And that was
We got to camp together, which was super
9
fun.
years later from after getting the message in the Aya ceremony to go collect the instruments. 9 years later to the month, I was then sitting in a ceremony and was invited to actually play the instruments. I thought I was going to just do the work for myself, but it turned out that the work for myself was actually to play the.
Well, how that happened is that the second night, the shaman came up to her before it happened, and she said, "I want you to play the instruments."
The spirits have told me you're supposed to play tonight, and you have permission. And will you bring your instruments and your headdress? And you don't say no to that. You don't say
when
no.
the shaman asks you to do the work, you say yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I said I will do that. And
so I sat in, my own space and witnessed where I saw her fully in her divine masculine power and was just in love, with the process and the whole thing. And I didn't even realize that's because she's my divine partner.
And the
that
shaman
I saw.
said, "Jerry, you're a sexy motherfucker."
She says, "You're sexy for no reason."
Sexy for no reason.
This is fully in the medicine.
she said, "Yeah, she is."
Yes,
and
she
I was
is.
like,
and I'm like, did I say that out loud?
I just
Wait
a second.
I think I did say that out loud.
She just said, "Okay, keep working, keep doing the thing." But I don't know if she saw me like that. Okay.
Yeah, the coyote medicine was really working that night too. So she was fully in her trickster, which was making me crack up, which really brought me into my fae energy. And so I was doing handstands. I was like, everyone is in their cocoon and I'm like moving with the medicine and like chanting to myself. And I'm trying not to be disruptive because I want to respect everyone's process, but I was moving and doing things and watching her and watching the shaman and, singing. And I look over and everyone's like in their thing, and then I would go back into my little cocoon for a little while. And then I'd come back out and I'd do some yoga. And, so it was I realized I could operate in the medicine in that level as well. Although I wasn't, a part of hosting that ceremony, I felt, it felt very familiar to navigate in that space, because like the sister next to me says, I was like processing hard. I look over and you're upside down. She's like, what's going on? And I was like doing a half handstand on the next to the bar, I mean, it was like the medicine, the energy was so welcoming. It was very welcoming, and there was the second weekend I'd sat with ayahuasca, but she'd sat many, many, many times years before. And so it was very, very familiar. So it was like a space that you'd been in often.
Yeah, I hadn't been there in about six years or so, but it was like no time had passed.
Mm-hmm. Which literally time is an illusion anyway,
but
as we all know.
That journey was, it was a significant moment just in my own process, but then to also witness each other in that ceremony and in our own energies, just showing it up was really profound. And then when we held our winter solstice ceremony,
so it was full on winter that weekend. In December is kind of questionable in Texas whether it's going to be full on winter in December or not, but it was. And Old Man Winter was like, and so we were like, I was super intimidated. We had both had a pool floating practice the whole summer, and I still had my pool up, and I was super fearful of like being so cold all night because I have a lot of vata in my system, in my Ayurvedic constitution. And I have a lot of wind energy. and I get cold really easy, which is great because she keeps me super warm.
I'm hot.
So,
she's cold.
Yes, it's a great balance.
Virgo, Pisces.
Yes. So, we started to find all these things out later, very shortly later. But December, I was told to create my headdress. And I also was meditating about the cold, and I was told to do a cold plunge and started following the meditations of Iceman Hoff and the cold baths and released the fear. And I remembered in that ceremony my energy of being a Valkyrie and all of the lifetimes I spent in the Nordic. And I'm Swedish in my roots. And I was like, no wonder why I love Hawaii. I'm so fucking tired of being cold, But in that ceremony, it was even more so us working together as partners. And it was the first time we put our ceremonial mats together. We had crystals kind of dividing our spaces, but our energy was completely combined as a partnership in hosting that winter ceremony. And my headdress came in, and we were making, finishing the gluing and things, right before we were ready to sit. And I, went to go get dressed, and I put on my ceremonial robe, which was velvet blue, midnight blue, and the headdress, which I don't know if you can see it, but I'll bring it over here. And it also has a lot of blue in it. And I had a lady on Etsy make the Valkyrie.
And this was my great grandma.
She gave me this beautiful chain, which so that came in and got completed, and I put it on, and it was before the women arrived.
And I gave her the knot. This on the front. Oh.
Yeah, the Celtic knot.
This right here. I've carried this for years and years and years.
Yeah, and then I received this from my dear Patricia Dancing Out from a sisterhood exchange. What kind of crystal is that again? Autumn?
Aqua Aura.
Aqua Aura. Yeah, it's so powerful. Super tapped into the psychic realm. And so as I completed, and then I also had my, my, what are those called? Cuffs? Anyway, made to match, and then finished the headdress, and I put everything on, and I came out, and my husband at the time was standing in the dining room after we finished the final touches on it. And
I got dressed.
Hummingbird. There's tiny hummingbird feathers on the corners of the headdress. Oh, so tiny and cute. And I put everything on and was completely ready, and she was ready.
Came out, and I saw her. It was just like, oh my God, like a whoa. just blown away, really. And it was just in awe of
recording
her.
In progress.
There we go. She might jump back on. So this was what the winter solstice ceremony we're picking up from where it dropped off on the recording of December of 2020 when my headdress first came in. And
so she came out, I came out, and we met, and we just saw each other again on this whole other level, because at that point, like, my headdress had also expanded. I had added some things to it, and then she...
Isn't that when your staff came in?
Well, because the staff came in, and I had found an owl on the way to the Aiylah ceremony as well. So those wings from that owl became part of my headdress. And so I was putting those on as you were creating your headdress, and it was just like another level up. And it was like 6 months later from receiving the headdress and her receiving her wings, and now 6 months later, I'm adding to the headdress, and I've got a staff, and now she's got her headdress.
Right, and also, the medicine drum. I've been getting very familiar with how to play it, and I mean, it started coming through. Mm-hmm. There were some more instruments that keep coming through, but all the tools were present is basically what was happening.
And
so we
over
felt-
that summer.
That's right, because that was a huge thing too. She had been like 10 years wanting a handpan.
15 really, but 10 years I got the confirmation because I got a Facebook reminder memory. 10 years ago you were wanting this handpan,
Which
I was going, I really want a
interesting
handpan.
about
And I
those
was like,
Facebook memories.
10 years ago this post, and I wanted it before that.
Like why am I
making
not?
this happen?
Yes, why
Like,
is
I'm
this not happening?
done.
Like why
I'm
am I
making
waiting?
this happen? And it all showed up and aligned, and that was a beautiful.
So this was the closure
Sidetrack.
of our platonic relationship, because right after that ceremony happened, and we sat in that cold, and
Was that
and
moment
that-
do you see her?
yes, that was so okay. Yeah, so tell how that happened, how that came in.
So there was a moment. She was, we usually take some pictures before ceremony. We're all dressed up. That
And the
doesn't
whole
happen
group.
all the time.
And sometimes we do individual.
And so Rich was actually taking some photos of you, and I was just seeing her in on a soul level in her full Valkyrie, like this galactic queen that she is, this embodiment. I'm just in awe.
I saw how she recognized me, how she was looking.
Like, I know, wow, like just this amazing being is standing here, and he's like
doing the motions like a good husband,
okay.
taking pictures.
Let me take a picture,
and he didn't recognize what he was seeing. He's like, "Oh, you're gonna go put on your stuff and go do your goddess stuff."
It was like it was a costume, and it was not a costume.
And I saw that he was like, "Just let me get the pictures over with. Y'all go do your thing. I'll go sit here and play on the computer, do my thing, and I'll see you in the morning." But it was kind of like he was rushing through the photos, and I also saw how she was looking and recognized like my truth through this placing of the headdress in the garb, and the remembrance of that power that has been previous lifetimes embodied so many times. And also when I saw her in her full garb and her headdress standing in her beautiful divine masculine, I realized that there was something much deeper that was at play here. And still ceremony partners. So this is the role she plays in ceremony. This is the role I play in ceremony.
Honor and respect for her contracts, her relationships, her family, etc.
Hey,
not an option, not even remotely an option. But I saw her, and I saw that he didn't see her, and I actually had to say something. I had, do you see your wife? Do you see her? Look at her. And he was like, I see her. And I felt it in my heart. It's like he doesn't get it. He doesn't actually see her. And that makes me really sad for both of them, because she's not being witnessed for her truth and seen, and kind of a little frustrating because I saw the magnificence and he didn't get it, and it just made me really sad for that.
And I saw the recognition that she had, which made me really excited, and that was enough for me to see how she witnessed in that moment. And it was the beautiful, beautiful ceremony through the cold. We sat in the south, right by the river.
Came down.
Yes.
And her wings so massive, and she flew in with her sword. Like, that actually happened. That's another story, because
Kind of
it's
hopped
also,
over the fire,
but
and
she
took out some dark energy.
She did.
And so
it was amazing.
Yeah, like literally, I was in it, and that medicine was strong. It was strong, and I was in it, and she's like, Aiylah, wake up. And I was like, she snapped into me, and she, instead of calling me Aiylah, she calls me Aiylah.
Aiylah.
And so I snapped.
Which is the first word I ever said in light language in 2011. I did piece that together later. I realized I've literally been calling her name since the first time I ever spoke light language. I've been calling you. Now it makes sense.
And I received my name through ayahuasca in May, and she told me my name is Aiylah, and my fairy name, my fae name, has always been Aiylah. And I'm very connected to the fae, and anytime we go to the Ren Fair, I get to dress in my fae, and any Halloween or any kind of event, either fae or gypsy, is what my role is, and or mermaid. That's pretty much the three things that I always choose. Except for back in the very first costume that I ever did when I was with my now ex was Cleopatra, which is totally circling back because I'm about to head to Egypt. But so all those archetypes coming through, and as you dress up, but you're not really dressing up, And so she told me my name was Aiylah, and I was like, oh, that's what I've always went by in my fae name. And then she calls me Aiylah, which is her nickname for me. But when she calls me that, it's like strikes my heart because I remember the so many lifetimes of her saying my name, And so then she received her name Takata, and through our Reiki lineage as well, Hawaii Takata is one of the grand masters in the Reiki lineage, and I put that connection together after a couple months of like, wait a second, Takata is also in our Reiki lineage, and so that kind of looped around as well. And then through the medicine too, in ayahuasca, she told me my second name was Valkyrie, which was a total confirmation. And then circling back to December, the Valkyrie energy really through with the headdress and the cuffs and the winter energy. So that really takes us to that night after ceremony, and we were sitting in the cabin decompressing. All the women were eating and conversing and integrating and sharing. And I just felt this need to really be close to her and sit with her. And so we just sat together, just leaning against each other as friends do. It wasn't anything inappropriate, but it was definitely the connection. The physical touch connection was really calling. And I felt like, how is this connection happening? Like, I don't even know what's appropriate, what's not. But I just felt the need to be close to her. And so that was enough, that was plenty. And then it was New Year's. And so this is really where everything came in. So New Year's, and it was...
Well, I got a message.
It was New Year's Day, 1/1 of 21, was when you looked at those memories on Facebook.
Well, I got a message from a past lover who
it's like
had been, a decade before, and we had we still have a lot of love for each other. That that relationship didn't work out. We were on different paths, but we had a really profound connection, and we had actually a really beautiful tantric connection. And she's just sent me, it was kind of an anniversary. So like when we had kind of come together a decade ago, it was on a New Year's Eve, and had kind of a profound recognition of each other. So she sent me a message for New Year's Eve, just sending me love and, hey, how you doing? And just I love you, like just a genuine care, but what came up for me is the recognition of like, there was some really beautiful parts of that relationship that I want to call into my life. Not from her, but the aspects that we did have in that connection that I am ready to have that type of connection again with someone else. And it put me in kind of a review of past relationships and certain aspects of different relationships that were really powerful and really beautiful. And what I wanted to call in for myself, and that good, that deep, profound love, that deep connection, that being on path with someone whose path individually is whole and complete, but is parallel and moving.
And that's
with
what I was missing.
my own path.
I didn't know.
And I recognized that. I was like, I want someone like Lisa that can walk this path with me. I want somebody that's like this person that meets me in this way, and then like that person that meets me on this way. I want all of those things together in one. And it was all kind of coming up. And thank you so much for sending that message, because it brought up all of these things, and it made me get really, really clear with myself, and recognize that my heart was ready to receive that, and then I was open to that kind of connection.
And it had been years since you'd been in a commitment.
Yeah,
in a relationship.
It's been almost 6 years at that point, 5-6 years. And so, as my friend and my ceremony partner, and we talked pretty much every day.
Yeah, I mean, we're like video chatting all the time, every day,
Constantly.
constantly. I was getting teased by my daughter, like, Jamie, why are you always on the phone with Jamie? And to the point where I'm like, I mean, we just have so much to talk about and so much in common that everything that happens, we share with each other. And
we never run out of things to talk about.
Never. And even in the silence, it's comfortable, so we could just be chatting and then just kind of chill and not really chat, and then chill and then chat some more. And, so it's just this ebb and flow that's through my day and throughout the whole last year. It had been happening.
What's coming through now? The downloads are this.
And the downloads were coming through like crazy, because it was 2020, so we would talk all the time. And a whole year of that,
Yeah. So
she messaged me right away when this came in, and this message.
And say, this is what's coming up for me. Like I'm recognizing that I'm calling this in, and I described it.
You need to say what you said, because it was.
But I can't remember what I said.
Okay, so what she said.
Describing like a tantric connection, right? When I
So what she said is, she said,
good.
In the message, she goes, I am calling in this good toroidal flow connection of divine connection and this union, and I feel like I'm ready to receive that now. And so when I heard that message, it hit my heart like whoosh, and I could like, what the actual fuck? Like, why did that hit me when she was just simply stating her truth and calling what she wanted to call into the universe? Why did that hit me?
Again, not an option. She's
not even aware. Blinders on.
She wasn't an option.
I was not aware at all of the connection that we had on that level. And so I sat with that message, and it gave me butterflies in my stomach. It made me jealous in a weird way.
Got real quiet.
I did not respond. And
got real quiet.
And she's like, we've been talking on and off all day. And I was like, that is jealousy. What the fuck is that? How would I even feel that? And the only reason I could feel it is because I felt that someone else would take that role and it would make me jealous. And I was like, okay, whoa. I can't even have that role. I'm married. How could I even be in that role that she named when I'm in this relationship? So I just sat, and my head was spinning. Like, I don't even understand what's being described here, but what's being described here is everything I've ever wanted in a sexual connection. But yet, I've been practicing Tantra on my own, in my own practice. And I've been sharing some of those practices with my then husband in the ways that he can understand it. But without him delving deep into those practices, it was very hard for me to be completely authentic and bringing through that without it feeling weird or crazy or, inauthentic. And so I was only able to share bits and pieces of these practices with him. And so I just messaged her back, and I was like, listen, I've got a lot going on in my head. I'm going to have to sit with this. I'll message you later. And I just got quiet.
And I got like hit with this like, and I was like, hold on. What you're
So
processing?
you gave me space, and then you
Does
came
it-
back. Like,
But does it have anything to do with me? And because I was starting to like, wait, this conversation shouldn't be triggering because you said you were triggered, and I was like, something else is going on here. And so I was like, does it have anything to do with me? And she messaged me back and she said it has everything to do with you. And then I was like, oh shit. Okay, just message me when you're ready.
yeah. So then I sat with it, and I was like, oh, I don't even know what these feelings are, but they feel good, and it feels heart-centered, and it feels in alignment with my truth. But I'm not supposed to be feeling these feelings because I'm supposed to be in a marriage. I'm supposed to do this and supposed to do that. And all these supposed to's kept happening in my head. And I just messaged her back, and I don't even know what I said. I just said, well, yes, it has everything to do with you, but also Spirit is telling me to read this book, this passage out of this book, which is literally
She like,
right
it like
here.
jumps off the shelf at her.
Yes, and I had sat with this. The last time I actually studied with it was when I sat with ayahuasca in May, and then I literally put it down. I put a bookmark in it. I wasn't even part. I was only part of the way through. Well, there's my bookmark right there in the middle, and I was reading about the dragon within, the womb containing a very strong ball of energy composed of concentrated wisdom, power, and magic, as old as the earth itself. And that's where I stopped reading.
Which I had an experience. That's a whole nother delve, but like 2018, 2019, I was actually doing some womb work with another friend. There were a lot of pieces that were coming in, a lot of information, the dragon egg, the sacred womb, the holy grail,
Yeah, and this
the
book,
divine union of the masculine and feminine. There were all of these pieces that had already been coming in. And so, yeah, she pulls out this book in this moment of like, what the fuck is happening? Something has
Spirit's
come
like,
up.
just read this book. And I flipped way into the back where I hadn't even read before and read this passage. Oh, there's one of our ceremony sisters' information. Opening the womb. And I was reading this, like, I don't even know where it is exactly, but it was this basically like a journaling exercise with your yoni. And it was like, okay, you talk about parts of the yoni and the
exploration, if you will.
Exploration, if you will. And it was just like leading questions of a conversation to go within your own body and your own being, is speaking through the divine feminine and answering these questions through a journaling exercise. So I was reading this exercise, which went through all the anatomical parts of the yoni. And she's like,
this is not helping. This is not helping at all. In fact, it's making it worse. So, what the fuck?
Yeah, I'm like, I think I'm just gonna go. Like, it was almost midnight on January 1st, and
She's
I was
like, I think I'm gonna go just take a bath.
Yeah, and so like,
and I was also like, having had a similar type of experience with another person in like, it was similar, but it was not the same. But where I was in this moment, it felt similar, right? Because there had been this like moment of some like remembrances coming up, right? And I was like, okay, so it's just kind of coming up. It'll pass. Just give it like, a few hours or a day or so, and like it's just some remembrances coming through.
What we even thought.
Because we had some. This friend and myself had some remembrances come up, and in some of those past lives we had been in union. Others we were sisters. Others we were friends. It was a combo, but there's a lot of feelings that come up when you have those memories resurface from past lives. So moving through those, we were okay, oh, it's all good, but you have to process that emotion. So I was like, oh, it's just some like past life remembrances coming to the surface. We'll move through it. It's all good. We're just ceremony partners.
Yeah. So she's
Right?
like, why don't you
It's
just go do that practice?
Just go do that practice. Maybe it'll clear something for you.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'll go take my bath. I'll put all my crystals in there, charge everything up, put all the salts in there, turn on the candles. Rich had already went to sleep. I was in there, in my own sacred space, because every night I would spend hours and hours in front of the altar, doing my practices and praying and meditating and channeling and working with Reiki and reading sacred texts. And so this was part of my practice. And so I went into the bath and started just meditating and praying, and Spirit was just telling me to do the gateways of Shakti, which I had just read about, and opening the gates. And I'd never been able to learn more about that because I hadn't ever read farther in the book, and also hadn't had a partner to practice it with. And so when I was reading about that and doing the practices, I was like, okay, something is activating here. It activated a whole entire circuit within my being, which opened my heart. And Spirit prompted me at that moment, really getting to a pure orgasmic state, massively orgasmic state. And Spirit's like, speak in your heart, look in your heart right now. And where do you want to send this love? And I was like, well, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to do that. And Spirit's like, stop the supposed to's right now in this moment. Where do you want to send this orgasmic love? And I said, well, to Jamie. And in that moment, the orgasm released, and I just went into this bliss state, shooting out of my body, and came back. And I was like, what the fuck, whoo. And I get out of the bath, and I'm like sitting in front of my altar and doing my Abhyanga practice, rubbing the oil and like trying to download what happened. And then she starts blowing up my phone.
Because while she was doing that, I was just like sitting on the couch, scrolling through Facebook or some bullshit, not really doing anything. Just like blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden I get hit with this like massive, blissful, orgasmic, like, what the fuck? And her face appears in front of me. And I am literally on the couch, just like, out of nowhere, just like, what? How is it even possible for me to be having an orgasm right now in this moment when I'm not doing it? Like, my head isn't even there. I'm not like, no stimuli, there's nothing happening, and yet I'm feeling all of it. And because her face appeared in front of me, I was like, what the fuck, what is happening? I knew in the back of my mind, okay, she had gone to the bathtub and we had talked about her doing this practice, but I didn't expect to get hit with it. And
I didn't even know that it would be
so hard. Like, I couldn't function, and I was like, what the fuck? And then she didn't answer because she was still in her process. And I stumbled to the bathroom where like a drunk, like I had to stop and pause and hang on to things. I couldn't even walk right. And I like made my way back from the bathroom, and I just like fell over on the couch, and I was literally like clenching a pillow, like going, oh my God, and it's not stopping. I'm just like, repulsive orgasm keep happening. I'm like, what is going on? And she finally responds, and she's like, did you feel that? And I'm like, I'm still feeling it. Like, what the hell? What is happening?
We didn't understand at all that the
She's
twin
like,
flame connection.
Spirit told me to just like send out what I felt in my heart to you and release that one. I was like, well, I freaking got it massively.
Yeah, and like I didn't even know that could happen. Like we did not have any idea. Since then, we've talked to other twin flames that it's happened to, but didn't have any idea that was a possibility.
Yeah, so
hang on just a second. Let me come back to this. I'm gonna stop and restart.
Okay.
Okay.
1 moment.
There we go. 1 moment. This one's okay, there we go. So this is starting back up from January 2nd of 2021, where the download happened. The orgasmic bliss energy was sent out from my heart space, and it hit you. You were in Plano, Texas, 45 minutes from me. And then, felt that, saw that, came in, and was like, we're communicating on voice message and texting, and like what actually happened. Like we couldn't understand it. And so we were like, okay, let's just go lie down. Let's just go lie down.
And she's like, I'm just gonna go to bed. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, I can't fucking sleep.
Yeah, and I was exhausted from that massive orgasm, and the whole tantric, experience. And so I just laid down, and I crashed for a couple hours, and then
I'm like, okay, it's not calming. I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go take a shower. And I was like, well, I'm just going to take care of myself in the shower as well. And then also I had this, like, I want to send this back. I want her to feel that in return. And I like Spirit was telling me to also just send it, reciprocate it. And so I did.
So I was totally asleep though. Totally asleep. And I woke up.
Massive, blissful orgasm. And then I'm just like kind of standing in the shower, like, oh my God, like what is happening? This is like next level, over the top. And my phone starts blowing up.
And so I had woken up literally full on panting, as if in like full sex, like in the middle of it. And I woke up in that state, and I went to my altar and was like, what is happening? What is going on? Spirit, please explain. This doesn't make any sense. And it was like orgasm after orgasm coming through in this wave of shock. And I was messaging her like, what happened? And she's like, well, I sent it back. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? Like, how is this even happening? And she's like, I don't know. We stayed on the phone until dawn, and then kind of slept, and then woke back up, and it continued to happen. Even if we weren't on the phone, we weren't communicating.
Like waves would just come out of nowhere, and it would just like literally stop you in your tracks. You'd just be like,
yeah, doing regular things.
I'm just
around the house.
Carrying this from the room to the other room because cleaning the house or whatever. And then you just like, and then it was almost like you could feel the gates about to open, and it was just like, hold it back.
Like,
and I'm like,
get to a place where I can
can't
sit
hold
down.
it much longer.
And so then I would start messaging her like, do you feel this? And she's like, oh my God, I'm so in it. And it, like, I would have to like literally at points hold on to the kitchen counter and just like, whoosh, or go sit down outside and ground. And it just, the waves kept coming. It was pure orgasmic bliss. And that happened back and forth. We would download after that happened.
Yeah. And it started coming through.
Well, then we started
channeling
some of the archetypes of the divine feminine, divine masculine started really making itself clear.
Of lives.
So that's when, Hecate was coming through for me, and then Ra was coming through for you.
Yes.
And so those deep, huge, massive archetypical channels were coming through in our own personas and just playing out these connections, this divine masculine, feminine connection within our own being and the remembrances. And then after that would happen, then we would message each other and remember lifetimes together. And so we started writing all these lifetimes down that we were sacred partners.
Light language was just
yeah,
pouring
and
out.
that's the only way we were communicating was with light language. And then afterwards we download everything that happened and try to figure out, like, okay, what is being remembered here? Why is this coming through? Like, and we would remember so many times of us being leaders together, and like,
my queen,
she's my king, and I remember she remembers me as her queen, and I remember many
my
lifetimes.
priestess, my chiefess,
Mm-hmm.
over and over and over and over and over and over and over.
So, and I've remembered her all the way back to the Temple of Isis when she was a priest and I was priestess, straight from the lineage of Isis as her initiates, and teaching the tantric energy, teaching the divine masculine union feminine in its highest form, and remembering lifetimes as rulers, queen and king, and
Sophia,
and the softness of Sophia,
Isabella,
all the names of our, and even galactic memories, of times that weren't embodied, yes. And
Aiylah, and over and over and over again. But we also had to go through the feeling, not only in the remembrances of these lifetimes, but we also had to go through all of the emotions that came up from those lifetimes.
And this was, again, all in
remembering
distance.
losing each other in these lifetimes as well. Remember her passing. I remember her funeral. I remember just, we would just be crying, and we didn't see each other in person for 3 weeks in this period of time.
And
3 weeks.
I was seeing her as her chief, and me being her chiefess, and her going off to battle and not knowing whether she's coming back. And just the memories were so and are still so incredibly strong. They're as strong as the memories of my children when they're babies.
Smell,
I mean, memories, all that moment,
jewelry,
everything got ripped
clothing.
off.
It was it was then that the Akashic records just went.
And what happened is, like,
opened up.
Like, it was like duct tape.
It's like, oh, this is all the stuff we weren't
duct
revealed.
tape on the eyelashes, duct tape on the eyebrows. It all got ripped off.
But we had to do that year as ceremony partners and develop our connection, our relationship, and recognize how we were.
Well, we worked together
in balance.
And
that also helped us balance ourselves to the next level within. And so when all of that, when everything was then revealed, we were already in this place of this beautiful balance, separately, individually, and then it just brought it to this whole other level of divine union.
Right. So it was just a massive remembrance, and through all that, I didn't know how to wrap my head around that. I didn't even know what was happening, and let alone how to share that with my then husband. Try to explain what's going on.
There were triggers as well. Triggers is things that made me like, I want to just run the fuck away. Because the past relationship that had triggered it all, the remembrances that she had also been married, and in that whole
The 10 years before you're talking about.
right, that 10-year before relationship, that communication, and I was like, this while we had this super intense connection and relationship, and it was very much divinely put in place. I was the secret. I was the side, like nothing could really be talked about. Nothing could be shared. And I had to live in this period of time for a while, very secretively and very hidden. And
she showed me she would never do
and
that
I was
again.
like
that's
I
not.
won't do that to myself
Yeah.
again. I don't want to be that. I don't want to play that. I can never. No, that is not. I've experienced that, and I will never do that again. And I'm not going
And
to.
it didn't work out.
Like
it's not a thing that was pleasurable, and
No,
and I can understand that. And
beautiful.
I never
And
expected, to have feelings like that showed up in such a deep way. So then, in order to process that, I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll book a session with a counselor. Talk like, who the fuck's gonna understand that? Like, who do I talk to? So I just kept praying and meditating and asking Spirit to please guide me and share with me. And then we got an opportunity to do a festival together, which was in this mall that was vacated, that we took over the whole mall, and all kinds of amazing light workers and beautiful people showed up to share their gifts and time and talent. And she was asked to DJ, and I was asked to do yoga. And
we had just started our full moon, new moon video.
Yeah, so we had in the winter.
Our first
we started doing
one
the
was
videos.
done like on the 27th or 28th of December, like 3 days or something before the downloads began, before all of this happened.
So it's the full moon of December.
One video, and then
all the information came through.
All that information came through, and then we had to make another video, and then
it was new moon of January 2021, which was literally a year since we had sat in medicine ceremony, and that's when we were going to do our video. And so I told,
and all of this has been going on for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks.
It was 2 or 3 weeks of this, and it was like constant,
and we had to see each other in person.
Like, okay, how's this going to work? We're gonna have to set some boundaries. Like, here's some rules. Like, okay, first of all,
we don't know what's really happening.
No kissing.
No,
because I knew that any kind of kiss would break my marital contract. And so it's like, that's not going to happen. She totally respected that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to bring the dog. The dogs can play in the yard. We're going to meet in the backyard, let the dogs play, and then we'll go in and do our video. And so I came over, and we just sat in the swing together and watched the dogs go like yin and yang, round and round and round and round and round and round, and play.
Black dog, white dog.
Yeah, we have opposite dogs.
They've never been able to meet their match until they met each other.
Yeah, they're little familiars
and their energy was just like all around the yard. They were just literally playing it out. Like they were the external expression of this.
Yeah, the toroidal energy literally was happening. And so I just sat and just kind of melted into her in the swing, and I was like, this is just enough, with my back against her, and I was like, this is great, just to be in her space, and then we went to do the video. Before the video happened, there was electric shocks and some touching happened, and it was like, whoo, okay, whoa, that's
can't cross the line.
Okay, there's massive. Okay, we realized that there is massive electricity there. Okay, it is real.
Yeah, we're not making this up.
And it's not going to stop. We thought it would just like the downloads would come through and then it would be done. That was a complete. That's not what happened. That's what I kind of thought. I mean, totally going into this completely ignorant.
But we kind of made out without making out.
Yeah.
It was like we didn't cross any boundaries, but we were close to one another. But what was also
the static electricity was like, it wasn't static. It was,
we knew each other so deeply
There was a yearning and a missing that I have never felt, and a need to be close that I have never felt. And it was such a pull and such a draw. It took every ounce of my being to separate and to sit and to record that video and to leave.
Looking back on it,
at the video itself,
it's kind of funny.
It is funny. It was from January 2021.
Where we were.
Yeah. And so, and so then the next weekend, we had an opportunity to do this festival. And so I was going to spend the night with her and do the festival. And I was like, okay, this is a perfect opportunity to explore whether this is real. And absolutely, it was real. And so we ended up having 3 full days together. And then...
but what about the private mushroom ceremony that we held and received all the... Well, that was the next weekend, wasn't it?
That was right. That was the Wednesday after the weekend of the festival, because then we'd already been together, and it was the first. The first ceremony that we held together. Yeah, the timeline. That's why we're doing this video. Is for our own recognition as well as what's happening in a timeline, because it's downloaded so quickly. But the January was a blur, and it was a massive amount of information coming through. And so the festival happened, and we did our pieces. I taught the yoga, she taught the DJ work, but after we came home, it was just like hours and hours and hours of tantric bliss.
Well, so it was on Saturday and Sunday, and she was going to come and spend the night Saturday night, but then you ended up coming and spending the night Friday night.
Right.
Instead.
Yeah, there was a point in time where I was like, okay, I'm going to just head on out there early. I was telling my then ex-husband that I needed to leave and avoid traffic, and I didn't want to go Saturday morning because then I'd have to immediately go to the festival and set up. And it was a trigger. We got in a fight. He said, get the fuck out and go leave. And I'm like, fine, I'll just go now. And so I did. And so we actually ended up having an extra night together before the festival, which was really beautiful. And there was no rush, like having.
But there was also no holding back. Like we couldn't stop it. There was no.
Yeah. The physicality of it was so intense, and it was this missing and yearning of being apart for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years that we hadn't been embodied together. Like, this was the first time that we'd been embodied together in a very, very, very long time.
At least 500.
Yeah, because I mean, it was
not
like
certain, but
I know when we have the memories of being king and queen, it was 1400s, 1500s. I mean, it was a long, long time ago, and I don't remember any other embodiments when I was with her after that until now. But all of them go back. The other ones go back even galactic. Like, her name Trayushabar comes from being a galactic commander, and I remember being part of that star command. And then she also had voyages that were where she couldn't find me. There was times where I was a Valkyrie in the galactic with my sister, and I had to completely wipe my memory and not remember her, so I could do the missions that I was called to do on the galactic level. And so there was so much coming in, and we're writing all this down, journaling all this, but to tell you guys about this because it is so very real. And these memories and this tantric connection started coming through, and the way that the energy has moved through us in tantra, and the ability to connect in through all of the gates, and then embody and shoot out into the cosmos, receive information, light language, mudras, breath work, tantric information, and light codes, and then embody it back down and shoot it down into the earth, and it just moves out in this atomic bomb of cosmic bliss and love, and it charging up the planet. Like it's crazy and incredible, and it sounds like it can't be real, but it is.
But it is real.
It is very real.
It is real.
And so that started happening, and then the next week we had held space on Wednesday for a client.
So we had the Friday night, then we did the event on Saturday, which was amazing and so divinely aligned, and we were actually recognized as being together
In our community.
from people who hadn't actually met us before, but they saw us as twins. They knew, and there were other twins that were witnessing and seeing us, and they just knew. They just
and
saw
so we
us,
immediately
and they were
gravitate toward
reflecting
each
back
other
to us
and talk about
that what we were experiencing was absolutely real.
and they were
because they were
experiencing it
seeing
too.
You're right, and they were seeing it all over us. So it was just this like confirmation of
Like to be seen in that way
Yeah.
that no one knew about any of our previous earthly life, and to see us
you know,
together.
just like you've always been together.
Yeah. I mean, it's just been like, yeah, we have.
Yeah.
And so then,
12 hours of bliss.
yeah.
Saturday. It was 12 hours. 12-hour session.
Amazing.
That was amazing.
And never experienced anything like that in this body.
And then Sunday, and then we came home Sunday.
And also, I had never been with a woman in this body. Like, that was the other thing, too, is that it doesn't really matter, like, how.
It's all energy.
Yeah, it's, like, crazy, amazing, and beautiful. And so
Things
then
that
Sunday.
I still can't explain.
No, I mean, just knowing things about the body and about her body that I would never know. Just, I remember.
I just
It's crazy.
remember.
And beautiful. And, I'm honored, to have found you again.
Same.
I really am. And so we are gonna, after the Sunday night festival and her DJ set, she literally closed down the show in this beautiful pyramid energy of a 4-story mall where it has like this glass ceiling and there's palm trees in there, and she's like throwing down this music, and I'm dancing, and there's LED spinners, and I mean, it was like dancing. Your set was really long. I got really tired. It was 2 hours of dancing, and then came back, and I was like, I can't drive, and I was like so in another dimension. We were in this 5D mall the whole weekend,
So
and
trippy.
then the mist and fog started coming in, and we had to drive back to her house in Plano. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make it back all the way across
We were
Dallas.
exhausted.
We were
because we
exhausted.
had a 12-hour session.
We didn't
the
even
night
sleep.
before.
Yeah, and then did a whole festival, and then I get a phone call from my daughter and my then husband, and said, don't come home, it's foggy, and don't come home until the next day. And I was like, wow, okay, so we're gifted with an evening together to decompress and download. And just rolled into her house, and I made dinner for the family, and they're like, oh, we never have dinner
Cruised by the
at the
grocery
table.
store on the way
Yeah,
home.
I got groceries. They're like, we don't ever have sit-down dinners. I'm like, well, this felt so comfortable and so perfect. And so we all had a sit-down dinner and chilled out. And then, of course, had an
You
amazing.
had a session the next day with Linda.
Oh, and I had, my Reiki master. So I said, that's the counselor that I chose as my Reiki master. So I was like, okay, the next day I'm going to
Who I've
go
also known for
talk
a really
to
long
somebody who
time.
might understand on this level. So, of course, we had another evening together of tantric bliss, but also a morning together to really integrate and talk and just have coffee. And, and then I was like, well, I'm going to go see my Reiki master. And she also knew her independent of my relationship with her, and her children even know her, Linda Ball. And I said, well, maybe you should come. We should just do this session together and have it kind of like as a couple session. And so we went together and shared everything, and she helped us understand and download and integrate. And so we ended up having more recognition than we'd ever had.
Mhm.
And then it was Monday.
Because it was sensitive. It was so very sensitive, and all this information was so absolutely powerful and so overwhelming and so beautiful and so amazing and so like, oh my gosh, like I've been looking for you for so fucking long, and that here you are. But also, here's our scenario: is that there is a contract, there is a marriage, and there's a lot of love there, and things aren't bad.
Yeah, it was never
And like
bad.
like and so much love and respect and honor for her agreements and for the family, and so it was like really sensitive. So it was, it's like, oh my god, this is happening, but oh my god, this is the scenario, and this is really hard to navigate. Like, what do we do? How do we move through this?
Yeah,
Because
I was like, okay, how do I even approach
we
this?
can't not unknow this information, and we can't put this back in the box.
Right, and of course,
Well-
being together physically, that breaks all contracts. And I was like, how am I going to share what happened? I don't ever intend to hurt him, and so trying to figure out that. Didn't see him Monday again because I was in session, and came back. Tuesday was like a regular work day. Wednesday we had a ceremony set up, and
Private ceremony.
so there was a woman that was staying in my Airbnb. When we were not using the yoga studio, we used it as Airbnb. And so she'd come in. She's a comedian and also an astrologer, and a intuitive astrologer at that. So she
Yes.
offered to do a session for us. But also she said that she felt the medicine on the land, and she'd been in a space where she almost had to live in her car. And I was like, you're going to stay at the studio. You're not going to live in your car. She was transitioning from California. And she said, I really want to sit with the medicine. I said, well, why don't we do an exchange where you do a reading for both of our charts at the same time, and then we'll do a ceremony for you, a private ceremony. And so we set up the reading for Sunday, the last day of January. We set up the ceremony for Wednesday, which had been open on my calendar because we both were going to sit with a sister and sit with Bufo. And then we were clearly told, no,
not to.
You're already receiving these heights of information. You don't need to go and utilize this medicine. You're receiving it through your tantric connection. And so we had this day open, and I said, well, what about tomorrow? She said, okay, I'll come and sit tomorrow. So she literally came in, and we had not figured out how we're going to navigate together now that we're tantric partners, to hold space as ceremony partners, to do business together. Like, how is that going to work?
How's that going to work?
And so it ended up flowing
as easily as
perfectly, like it always has.
Yeah.
And I saw her, like, I hold space as the divine feminine through ceremony. Durga Ma speaks through me a lot, and I just step out of the way and just share what she's sharing. Sometimes it comes through in light language, sometimes it comes through as a lecture, sometimes it comes through as an energetic clearing, or a shamanic clearing, or a sopla, or whatever. But then she holds space through the divine masculine, through the drum, the ceremonial drum, and through the tending the fire, and to holding down the container, really. And so as that was happening, it was indoors, which we'd always had a fire, but this woman was also an experienced practitioner, so she could talk and navigate through the medicine. So as I was holding space for her as a divine mother, and her being in this position of a divine daughter, she was holding space as the chief, and I was in this submissive role to bring her staff, and bring her drum, and bring her water. And like, it felt very comfortable to be in this role that felt very much like a wife, and yet still hold this divine, strong space as a ceremony holder. And so as we navigated through that, what was your takeaway like in that?
I mean, there was that recognition that she was my wife, that she had always been my wife, and just so much honor and respect for the work that she did, and just to witness her was so amazing. Just so amazing to watch her. She's a badass. She's such a badass. But then there was this. It was I don't even know if I can put it into words. It's just so profound. But I was like, kind of like, there's an instrument that I'm needing, and
I just felt this
what
need
is the
to
thing?
like
And I was
serve. I'm
kind
like,
of
"Hey."
channeling information through, like speaking in light language, but I also knew that there was something that I needed that I didn't have, and my staff was kind of in the corner, so where I was sitting, I couldn't actually see it when I turned around. And she got up and went and grabbed it,
and I didn't
brought it
it's
to
like
me.
wouldn't walk in front of her though. Like I went and got the staff, and I brought
She
it,
just came
and then I came like
laid it in front of me.
around behind, and then like handed it to you like this, and then I just went back and I handed it to you, and she grabs it, and then I go back and I come back and just sit in my spot and hold space again, and it was like I didn't know that was a behavior that was appropriate in the Native American culture, but as I've looked into that, absolutely, the chief just never walks in front of the chief. That is disrespectful, especially when when the chief is holding space. And so like I just did that naturally. It was very interesting as a Western woman to feel that submission and that softness. And more so, the softness and the surrender has started coming in and coming in and coming in.
But it was honoring and very respectful, but then there was profound honor and respect back to her.
And it wasn't like she expected that. It was
dominating man.
Yeah, it was a very different energy, and it was
just a
very pleasing to honor in that way. And I'd never felt that in this life, and meaning absolutely no disrespect to my ex-husband at all. It's just I hadn't ever felt that energy of complete submission and surrender. And it's the Sophia, the Christ Sophia love, the divine feminine softness that has come through this connection that is so beautiful. And so as that happened with that ceremony, then that after she was holding space, it was so confirmational. And then the client went to sleep. I went to go make her I was making a crock pot full of taco soup, and I wanted to make sure that she was fed that night. There was nobody home. And so she and I were in the kitchen together, and things got heated, and we had our first kiss on the patio. And
so this happened before.
Yeah, that was the week before. You're right. It was the week
this
before.
was the Wednesday before that. So our timeline got a little bit
it was our first kiss.
This was the Wednesday before she came for the weekend, actually, not the Wednesday after, because that was our first. That's where we allowed the kiss to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And we had been holding it back, and finally it was.
Well, because it was the new moon. There was the new moon ceremony where there was the rule of no kissing, and then that we were alone, and it just happened. It was a moment that was really important and very significant, and it was I'll never forget, and it was such a familiarity and such a purity to it, and a recognition, and then the passion and fire and energy that happened after that was like incredible, like in the freaking movies. But then of course it was like breaks. They're like, okay, no, this can't happen, so nothing happened. And then that weekend together happened where everything was confirmed, and everything was like, okay, yes, this is happening in the physical realm. This is not just energetic. This is not just a download. And now what to do with it, we integrated that with our counselor and Reiki master. And then
the next week,
a couple days later, I was still swirling from the process. And like, how am I going to speak to anybody about this, let alone my husband at the time? And then we got invited to a really contemporary church service that was with all the people from this tribe that we had seen the weekend before
I
at
made
the 5D
5D
mall.
mall.
And so we're like, okay, what is this? And they're like, well, I mean, a lot of people are getting together, playing music, integrating. It's at someone's home at this beautiful loft that's like made out of stone called the Castle Cathedral. And it's a tribe of people that are getting together. And we hold fellowship, and someone does some sacred teachings. And then we just hang out and integrate. And we're like, yeah, that sounds amazing. So let's go to this church service. And
we had
it was the
we
Friday.
had a video that we had to do on Friday, and then that was Friday evening, and then we were doing what?
It was a shamanic training.
The shamanic training.
So we were doing a shamanic
Saturday.
practitioner training on Saturday with a group of women that were coming over to my yoga studio. So it was a busy weekend again, full of work. And then we had the astro reading with that lady on Sunday. So
I had to go to the property in order to do our work, what we had signed up for. So I had to be there, which was like this, like, how do I like be
Show
here? And
did you come
know
that Friday?
all the things that are, we did our video in the studio.
Okay. Yeah, and that video was so
The
awkward.
wolf moon.
That was so awkward. That energy of like trying to maintain our composure being next to each other on video. I mean, you look back at some of those old videos and we're like, oh my God. So
we're trying to
like to create space between us, you know.
Simultaneously.
It was so awkward, you know, to actually have to do that. So then we went to this party and had an amazing connection with these people, and then had an amazing connection together that night. And then the next day had the shamanic training. And
what?
And then a lot of women came over. We started recording our shamanic training, and the lady that was doing the astro reading did a recording for us. And then Sunday morning came, and I had went to sleep in the master bedroom next to my then husband, and got up to make coffee. And it was quite early still. And I was gonna go tell her that the coffee was ready, because as we mentioned, coffee is a ritual, and we'd been enjoying it together on video chat.
Still coffee.
Yeah. Finish that off, babe. It's dark outside. So that's it. The last of it. The mushrooms are at the bottom. We have a beautiful mushroom blend we got in Hawaii that we put in there. So anyway, I made the coffee and I went to go tell her coffee was ready, and she just got this horrifying news that just received about
my son had been delivered home by the police that morning.
And we're sitting there talking like, what actually happened?
He was like breaking into cars.
Yeah, he was doing some stupid shit.
The 14-year-old.
And she's like,
then 13.
What do I do? Do I leave to go? She's like, my parents brought, or it was your mom? Who brought him home?
No, the police brought him home. Brennan was home. Her brother was
there. So she's like, there's nothing I can really do at this point. And I was like, well, our reading is supposed to happen in an hour. Like, she's literally coming over here to do this reading. And
it was like,
so,
do I go? Do I stay?
And she's like, well, I think I should stay and do the reading, because we had this exchange for the ceremony for the reading. And I was like, well, let's just go in and make our coffee. So we walk in the house. She's making coffee. I walk in the bedroom, and I get bombarded by Rich going, what the fuck were you doing? Why were you in the cabin? And I was like, we were just talking in the morning, you know, getting ready to have coffee. And he's like, just threw out there, have you kissed her? And I was like, what? Like, we don't need to have this conversation right now. Like, for real, let's just have coffee. Let's create a time and space to talk. I do want to talk to you. And he storms out of the room and sees her making coffee. And I don't even know how it went down, but it got really ugly, and yelling happened.
You motherfucker. That's what I remember.
Yeah.
I remember a dragon coming at me saying, you motherfucker. And I was like,
So I said,
Wait.
yes, I've kissed her.
Like,
and that's
what?
when he flew out the door.
Like, okay, he now knows. And you have to understand, we weren't trying to hide it as much as we were trying to figure out what the fuck was really happening.
Yeah, and I wanted to find a time and place to approach it, like where we could talk.
It's been 1 week since we had actually had the physical union occur. There had been all of this build up. We had not seen each other through the first 3 weeks of it. And then we saw each other like several times over like this 2-week span, and it just kept amplifying. So it was really like this place of like, okay, we have to do this work that we've signed up for and agreed to, but we also like, we got to figure out how to maneuver through this. And now it's just happening. Like, it's like, we're not really trying to hide it, but we're trying to figure out how to do it. And yet now he's coming at me, and I know that he now knows. And I don't know what the conversation was on the other side of the door. I don't know what's been discussed. I just have like going like, what?
So yeah, I redirected the energy and I said, let's just all talk.
So
give me space. Stop yelling.
I'm gonna go outside. And
yeah, and so she goes and just drops into child's pose off the back deck. And I said, I want to talk to you. Please allow me some time to meditate. I want to share what's happening, and I need to tell you, but not like this. And so I went down to the water in the space where basically, we had our ceremonies, and I said, do you want to come down and sit by the water with me? And we'll just sit there and meditate and integrate and listen
right. For spirit to tell us and guide us, because that had been really what we had been doing this whole time. It was just like, spirit guide us, like a surrender, like, please just help show us how to maneuver through this process, because you were showing us and you were putting us together, so therefore you must show us
how are we supposed to navigate
this whole scenario, this whole process. And spirit did. So we went down
we did not
commune with spirit. Show us how to make it through this part. Yeah, and holy shit.
I mean, my mom came in.
Really real.
Down. My mom came in. Do you have your phone? Here.
No, I don't.
So give your phone and we can just log into the temple Instagram real quick. My mom was, just there with me. I was sitting with her, and she had crossed over in 2008. And she was like confirming that everything was okay. It's okay. This is where you need to be. It'll work itself out. Just stay calm, stay patient. Don't fire back. All that stuff. And then even my Rich's mom came in, and she had crossed over a year before, and she was telling me, she gave me a hymn. Temple. You gotta get out of this account.
I'm trying.
Right here. And so she was she gave me a lyric of an ancient hymn.
I'm not even signed in on Temple anymore.
Okay. So I don't even know.
Okay.
So but so just type it in there and we'll see if you might remember it. She was telling me, what was the lyric? It was it is well with my soul.
All is well with my soul.
And so that was the verse that kept going over and over and over, is it is well with my soul. And so that's what happened, is that, I just sat with it, and she was sitting with it as well, and said, okay, I know that everything's going to be okay eventually. How is that going to work out? And
just the password.
So We're going to resume this
Recording stopped.
on the next video here. Tell you what happened at the creek.